Good morning, and sorry for that particular sound hitch there, but we are back on the road, ready to bring you up to speed with what is happening in regard to the demonstrations, as well as a recap of what is happening at the Kenya School of Government, where the Cabinet Secretary, Digital Economy and Communication, Elido Walo, alongside PS Broadcasting, that is Professor Edward Kisiagani, is meeting departmental heads of Kenya Broadcasting Corporation. Among the issues that were discussed is regarding to matters of reformation and looking at KBC's business model so that it can bring it back to profitability and such. You'll have a comprehensive report from our reporter Fred Moki, who's currently covering that particular meeting. Now, to bring it back to studio, the question is, we grow tea, but do we consume it as we should? And in as far as we're growing tea, as far as tea production is concerned, is it a worthy venture? Taking us through this conversation is none other than the CEO of the Kenya Tea Growers Association, Apollo Kiarii.
Thank you.
Now, let's start on a very light note, given that tea is one of the main, export, or rather foreign exchange earners for the country. I'm sure tea farmers in the country at this point are smiling all the way to the bank, given where the shilling is at and against the dollar. Tell us, what is the status report in regard to tea earnings in the recent times?
Thank you, Sheila. Tea is a very interesting crop. It's an interesting commodity traded globally. And as you rightfully say, we trade in dollars at the Mombasa Tea Auction. And that is only one aspect of the activities that we undertake. And when you look at how the dollar is behaving currently, we can say yes, that variation in terms of the shilling versus the dollar is trying to cushion some of the losses, some of the constraints and the challenges that the farmer goes through. So we cannot say 100% it's a very profitable business at the moment, but we can yes say that it's cushioning. And whereas it's not good for the country in terms of availability of the dollar and the cost it has, it is cushioning the farmer in the tea sector in terms of the inputs, in terms of meeting cost of production. So yeah, thank you. It's good.
You're smiling all the way back.
Not really. I don't want to say yes 100%. I'm saying it's cushioning us. It's assisting. Yes.
But then let's look at in terms of our output, in as far as production is concerned. We had a record in January, February. The production went down. What about March? How is our production looking like?
No, lines have just hit the ground, especially in the Rift and also around the Mount Kenya region where we do tea. We expect in the next few weeks crop to go up. Production had really dwindled almost to 40%. That meant that activities had also gone down. But within the next few weeks, the next 3-4 weeks, we'll see production going up. That has a converse effect in terms of the demand by the buyers, because they see this huge production. So even there's availability of more tea. So in terms of giving you a good price, they also go down. So it's the issue of supply and demand.
Supply and demand.
Yeah.
When there's a lot of supply, demand tends to relax. Yes.
Yeah.
Now, we know tea, coffee, these are crops that we have grown up listening to, that these are, our main crops and such. But then we are seeing tea. Acreage under tea is shrinking with urbanization and such. How are we looking at smallholder farmers when it comes to tea growing? How are we handling the competition between other cash crops and tea growing?
Incidentally, tea remains a very strategic crop for this country, noting that it's the largest foreign exchange earner, so to speak, next to diaspora remittances. And then there's horticulture and floriculture at that place. Tea is over 40-50 years old in the country, same as coffee. And so these are mainstay crops for the country. And to start with, what I would say is that I wish we could give them that attention that they require. so that they are not just crops that are handled haphazardly without a clear direction. I'll come to that shortly, but to go to your question, is that we are surviving with tea because there's still demand for it. People will still take tea. But from a Kenyan context, we don't take tea. We produce too much tea, and we don't take it. We only consume 5% of the total tea production.
Why don't we consume more tea? If you ask, I mean, yes, you should be consuming what you're selling, but we always go, let me take you for tea, let me take you for coffee, but now we do not end up taking tea. Why?
Shira, tell me, you left your house in the morning.
Yes.
Did you take up a cup of tea?
And I had coffee.
You had coffee?
Yes.
You came to the office. I can see water placed in front of you. Is there a flask of coffee around this room?
None.
Or tea? None? I think it's an issue of perceptions, trends, and preferences. Tea is likely or mostly being taken by the old generation who prefer a warm, hot cup of tea in the morning. And then during the day, they'll want to take another one around midday, thereabout, and in the evening. There are times you would go into hotels and you find the high teas that used to happen at around 4 o'clock in the evening. Now, go to our conference room in these big hotels around the country. You'll find bottles of water and what do you call them, dispensers, water dispensers. But you'll not find a flask of tea or a tea urn placed in the conference room where people can take tea in Kenya. So we produce a lot of tea, we consume 5%. A country like China and India, they consume almost 80 to 90% of their tea. So that's why you find that the value of their tea is very high if they were to export it or to offer it into the market. So from a Kenyan context, we need to go back where we were. I remember those days, VOK, we used to see advertisements every time it's tea time. And we got addicted to tea. But I'm telling you right now, when you go to a hotel, you go to a restaurant to ask for tea, you'll be looked at suspiciously by your colleagues. They beg you to order something else that I don't want to mention.
We will not go there.
Yeah.
But there's also, since you've brought up this issue of perception, when you talk about tea growing has been a preserve of the old generation. Why would a university graduate actually plant or grow tea? What would motivate them to actually grow tea?
What we need to do as a country to encourage our young people, our university graduates, and anybody who wants to do a business and to get attracted to tea is to make it, one, profitable. Because if there's money in it, then you'll go for it. The kind of tea bushes we find in our country, and especially in the smallholder sector, that's people with less than 10 acres, 5 acres, 1 acre, half an acre. This is tea bushes that have been passed over from grandfathers to their fathers to their grandchildren. And they keep it because of aesthetic purposes. It's not because it's profitable. Somebody will say, I was educated by tea, so I can't dare uproot a tea bush. Even if it's not commercially viable for me, I'll keep it there. I see it when I go to Kiarii over the weekend. I can see my tea bushes and I feel good. But it's not a profitable business. FAO did a study sometimes back about 10 years ago, and they determined that anybody with less than an acre of tea, you'll never make profits out of it. And those are the majority of our farmers, over 500,000 farmers who are in that category of less than an acre of tea. Meaning, they are putting money in this pocket and removing it from this other, but you don't see a change in their livelihood because it's not a profitable business. Okay. Anything over that, yes, you can break even because of cost of production keeps going up every other day, but the prices remain stagnant. So it's not attractive to people because it's not making money. And I think we need also to, in our curricula in the schools, in colleges, can we introduce tea, which is a strategic crop for the country, a foreign exchange earner, make it a subject that people can learn. We have a university here in Kenya that teaches issues of tea. Karatina University is trying to do that. But do we really have courses on tea production, tea manufacture, tea marketing, and all that?
You raise pertinent questions, and now this brings up the question of emerging trends in tea growing. We have seen an increase in demand from the Chinese market for orthodox tea. It is also having it. We are also having it demand in continental Europe. Talking about these emerging teas, just last year we had the Tea Research Institute come up with five varieties of tea: green, yellow, and black, so to speak, as well as white. Has this changed? Is this the direction that we need to take so that now we can have more uptake of tea growing?
I think that's the direction to take in terms of making tea profitable business. Because the black tea that we produce in large quantities is sort of saturated in the global market. Statistically, last year, the total global production was about 6,000 kilos of made tea production. No, consumption. Production was 6,300 million kilos. So it means that production outstrips demand. That's black tea. Now go to the specialty teas you are talking about. The orthodox, the oolong, the white, the green tea, the purple tea, name them. Those are infusions and extracts. Those could be the direction that we need to think about, because I would think that as I leave my house, I would like to have my infusion with a health benefit connotation in my flask. I sip as I drive, okay? When you sit in the office, people are conscious of their health these days. So they would like to have something that is addressing to their health consciousness. So can we be able to produce teas that address that? Make tea a sexy product, attractive to people, right? Mm-hmm. But now to do that requires a lot of input, it requires a lot of marketing, it requires a lot of strategies, it requires a lot of policy, legislative, and it's quite a big challenge. But globally, that is the way to go. Otherwise, we continue producing black tea, then we will not be able to see profitability. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The government has been undertaking various reforms within the coffee sector, within the tea sector, and one of the issues was actually pushing, or rather the drive towards this specialty teas, growing of these specialty teas. Do you think we're doing enough, especially when it comes to policy and government, to have this, farmers supported in growing these specialty teas?
As I said, there was that hype that purple tea would sell globally. Actually, the value was being said you sell it at between $5 to $10, a kilo. But then, who are the consumers? What percentage, what proportion of the market consumes that special tea? It's mostly high end. The people who can afford high quality products, for that matter. And so, say that you'll be able to convert our factories to produce those quality, those types of teas, the specialty teas, to do the proper marketing, because you cannot produce a tea or a product and you don't know where you are taking it. Who will buy it? So that's what we really need to do first. Come up with a marketing strategy under the Tea Board of Kenya or any other platform government would want to set up, with clear mandates of looking up and opening up new markets. Because without that, then we will be going around. It will be a vicious circle. Open up new markets. Identify the consumers of that high-value tea. Then come and tell me, produce this tea, there's a market there. Assured market. Rather than produce tea in anticipation. Then you end up with containers of tea in your warehouses that is not going.
Talking about earnings, there's been talk that we have a lot of middlemen cartels between, tea marketers and actually tea growers, looking at even the Mombasa tea auction from where you sit. How do we address this to ensure that the tea farmer back in Kericho, who is working hard to actually grow the tea bushes, gets the earnings that they require?
I think there's a big misconception about that, the issue of cartels and the issue of middlemen in between. Once tea is made in a factory, it's final, it's finished. It's ready for consumption. So the only thing that the farmer does, be it be a smallholder farmer or a large plantation farmer, is to take it to the market. And globally, the market where tea converges for sale is Mombasa. Globally, it's the largest tea auction in the world. So you take it there. When you go there now, you'll find the buyer waiting for it. And what you have is a person called a broker. It's the wrong term, so to speak. I would rather call it something else, an agent. You said a broker. A broker is the one who is told by the buyer, can you get me so many kilos of tea this week, this quality, this grade? Yes? So the broker will look around all the factories that are producing tea and identify where that tea is coming from. And then he'll be able to assess the tea, inform the buyer that this is a tea that is available in so many packages, and the estimated value. Okay, he'll assist the producer who is sitting in Kericho or Kirinyaga to connect with the buyer, because I don't expect the farmer in somewhere in Meru to have his agent in Mombasa talking with the buyers. So that broker cum agency connects the two, and that's the only intermediary between the producer of the tea and the buyer, period. And there's an agreed kind of framework as to what do you pay to the agent as a buyer and what do you pay to the agent as a producer. So that's the practice. And that connotation that there are so many cartels, we would like to see and identify them. Maybe they are faceless.
Most often cartels are faceless, but we feel their impact overall.
Yeah.
Now, since we're saying we need to focus or rather incentivize, tea production, we're seeing that even our tea, when it goes out there, when it comes back in some sort of value addition. Changed. We sent it raw, it came back, it's something else. Why have we been talking about value addition within the tea production value chain, and still, we are still talking about it and nothing is being done? How do we correct this?
Yeah, we've talked about value addition so that it can bring more revenue, so to speak, to the farmer. And by value addition, what are we talking about? Is it blending different grades to produce a special brand that you have identified as a packer? Is it, packaging in small components, small packages into tea bags? What is value addition? That's what we need to ask ourselves as a country. And the challenges of value addition, whereas it's a platform for better earnings and better revenues to the farmer, is that the challenges it has is, how do we determine, once you package in those small quantities, and you have a brand, name it whatever name you give it, that's what we are talking about. Who will take that tea? Already, globally, there are established brands of tea. You go to the big supermarkets in Europe, there's a brand you'll find. Just like you go here in Kenya, you'll find a brand of Coca-Cola, or you can go into the wine or the brewery industry, you'll talk about Taska. It's already branded. So what shall we call our tea? Shall we brand it as a straight tea, Kenyan tea? Or will you brand it with other teas from other countries or from locally? Give it a name and export it there. You have to do a lot of marketing to open up that space. Yeah? Because of this competition, definitely. And those existing brands have been there for over 70 years. Well established, multi-billion-dollar networks. So how do you penetrate that? As an individual factory in Kericho or in Nandi. So you will need government support to be able to discuss with the governments that those markets are, agree on friendly tariffs, duties, agree on, transport is a big issue, because if you transport tea in bulk, you transport more of it. You transport in small packages, you transport less, but you pay the same for the space in the containers and all that. So it's a big discussion that we're having with government, and we want to see how well we can be able to structure it in a way that it adds value. Because the minute tea is packaged, value added is done in those countries, we're exporting jobs, because they are doing the value addition in those countries. Why don't we do value addition here in Kenya so that we employ people here? So what goes out is the final product for drinking. We need to look at the policies that we have. Do we have a tea policy? We don't. Do we have frameworks to support the producer or the investor who wants to do value addition? The incentives, tax holidays. import duties on raw materials that you bring in, the packaging materials that you want to bring in, the machinery and the equipment that you need to do to be able to do the value addition. So there's a big host of discussion that needs to be undertaken between industry and the government. And to say here that let it not be that it's the producer whose knowledge and capacity is to produce tea. Let the space be opened and a platform created whereby me, as an investor, I'll go to the bank, borrow money, and decide I will do that value addition, get the raw tea from the factory, do value addition, and export it. That is a discussion that can happen, and it can earn good revenues.
Talking about discussions, I'm trying to open up at some of the recommendations that were made by a task force that undertake, some survey in Kericho, and some of the recommendations they made was around mechanization, and the proposal was to have at least 60% of the tea plantations worked and manned by, mechanized 60% acreage and 40 to be handled by human resource. What do you think about this particular proposal? This was done in Kericho, and I can see the Kenya Tea Growers Association was present and part and parcel of participating in that particular process. Do you think that this would change the outcome?
Yeah, we are aware that last year the county governor for Kericho did commission a task force to look at the issues of tea production within that county holistically, not only targeting issues of mechanization, but holistically tea, because Kericho is a tea country. Actually, it produces the largest amount of tea within the country. And it was a good initiative, because that discussion now will enable us to talk to one another, not at each other, because that's what has been happening over time. The industry has not been able to have a common environment to talk with the government, both national and county. So the recommendations from that report, we did make our input. We explained why we went to mechanization, and that's, I think, where we need to start. Why did we go to automation of tea plucking activities? One is because of cost of production. Over time, over the last 20 years, tea prices have remained flat, not changing. If you look at the trend, never changing, averaging $2.50 per kilo. But look at cost of production over the last 10, 20 years. Labor has gone up by almost 20%. Look at energy, electricity, gone up. Inputs, fertilizer, going up. Transport, name it, warehousing, going up every day against a flat price stagnation. So, and when you look at the plantation subsector of the country, which contributes 40% of the tea that is produced in this country, they are labor intensive. They still are, because they employ thousands of people. So, to mitigate on that, the most prudent thing was to automate. Put in equipment that are done all over the world. Actually, we are competing with other countries, and they are, Argentina, an estate of about 1,000 acres is run by about 40 people. Yeah, because it's highly automated, both at the factory and at the garden. So one of the things that took us there is to mitigate on cost of production. And until we have a solution to cost of production, I don't know how we can be able to say that we will apply this percentage on mechanization and this percentage on labor. The people who have been left to do automation and mechanization are earning good salaries. They are living in better houses. They have better medical services, access to education. So it's on the converse, that less employment but better packages in terms of earnings. But then what has happened over time that led to mechanization is that no people, no workers have been dismissed or terminated or declared redundant on account of redundancy. It's out of natural attrition. Somebody retires, somebody is dismissed for lawful cause, somebody resigns, somebody dies for whatever reason. Instead of replacing, you apply an equipment to assist. So that is the facts behind the automation. And I think now we have an opportunity to talk with government, both at national level, county levels, so that we can educate them. I think the fact is that nobody ever told them why we are doing this. But we have an opportunity to talk and discuss and get a solution.
Now, while we're having this conversation, we've already said that tea growing is not attractive to the younger generation. And actually, tea growing is passed on from one generation to another. These conversations that sector players are having, are you involving the young, or rather the youth? Because these are the ones who are going to still inherit those acres of land.
Yeah.
Yes. Are we having these conversations with them?
Land is very emotive.
Yes.
Tea is grown on land, and land is very emotive. Because I'm there who owns 2 acres of tea. He wants to hold on to it until his time is gone. Okay, there are those who say that I have 5 acres, so I'll give you 1 acre here, there, you, his sons. But he'll not give them titles. So the title will remain with him, but he'll apportion and tell you that is your tea. So sell it, it's yours. Learn your family with it. So, but when it comes now to politics of tea, as in getting into discussions of how tea is grown, the earnings behind it, the inputs behind it, you'll find it's the owners of the tea who actually are in the forefront. So it needs a change of mindset and also, clear policies as to what needs to be done. But I can tell you, I have not seen the youth getting very interested in this business. I don't know what we'll do to them.
What happens when they inherit the acreage?
Most of them are working here in Nairobi, in urban areas, so they have their workers out there. How many kilos did you pluck today? 10 kilos. Did you take it to the buying center? Yes. Whatever comes, they're happy with it. Because they're not doing it because of profitability, as I said. It's aesthetics. Yeah, I have a tea bush. When he's bragged with his colleagues, I have tea bushes in Chags. So he's a tea farmer by paper, not by action.
Then what is the future? What is the future then of tea growing in the country? Given the statistics as we are, maybe in the next 20 years, you've said tea has been in the country for the last
50
years.
Yeah.
Now imagine the next 20 years.
Unless we make it, as I said, more profitable to those with small portions, because that's where the problem is. If you have a small portion of land, believe you me, you'll not break even. So unless we make it profitable, by way of restricting, over-regulating it and stifling it, letting it learn as it used to learn before as a gentleman's industry where my word and your word would stick. The future looks bleak, both from an interest perspective, people who are interested in doing this business, because they continue complaining that prices are not good. We want to uproot our teas. Unless there's something that can be done, so though, can government assist the smallholder farmers who have less acreage to uproot the very old moribund tea bushes that were planted in the 1930s and the 1920s. Those teas are not productive anymore. They've reached their optimum. They cannot produce. Their yield is going down every day. But to replant and to wait for 3 years before you start plucking again, what will that farmer be using as his revenue? A strategy needs to come out whereby they are assisted in uprooting the old low-yielding clones, putting high-yielding. Tea Research Foundation has been able to come up with very versatile kind of clones that can yield highly and resistant even to drought and to pests. And that could assist them to be able to make an extra coin. As it is right now, it's nose diving in terms of production, unfortunately.
Sad, yes?
Yeah.
But then I'm trying to figure out what you said. Whenever we go to a restaurant or such, we often say we are going for coffee, tea, but we do not consume our tea. Maybe also a mind change set in terms of our consumption then would also increase the value of this tea out here.
We have the Tea Board of Kenya, who is the regulator of the industry, and they have the marketing department under it. I think they need to go out. Why is India consuming 80% of their tea? In China.
In China too?
Yeah. Why are they consuming all their teas? Are we also making tea very expensive?
That's another question I wanted to put to you, because right now if we were to give a survey within the supermarket for you, you can get a sachet of mixed coffee retailing at around 18 shillings or 15 shillings. That is coffee. You have creamer, you have your sugar, you have coffee.
Yes.
Then you go looking for tea. First of all, tea, we do not have instant tea unless it is a tea bags. They're not sold in sachets, they're sold in small boxes.
Yes.
And when you look at that, you're talking at around 390 or 500 shillings, depending on the size of the box that you have. The question, pricing and how it's affecting the consumption of tea locally.
Yeah.
But who gets to decide that?
Now, as I said, issues of policy. Tea is zero rated when it's for export. As long as it comes from the factory all the way to Mombasa, straight into the containers and out at the port, zero rated because it's for export. You go to a tea factory now, they have small shops within the gates, and you want to buy tea, it's VAT charged. It's a food commodity. Other items like milk, like unga, they don't attract VAT. Why can't we make tea VAT free at our local door sales, at the factory door sales? The kind of discussion we've had, because I've been in the industry now for the last 10 years, and we've had discussion with government that what do we need to do about VAT, exempting tea from VAT at the factory door sales? What kind of loss will government experience, treasury for that matter, out of that VAT? Whatever they lose, whatever billions, is it 13 billion per year? We can gain it by allowing small manufacturing setups to crop up because they're able to buy tea at a factory price that is zero rated, VAT free. They're able to do those kind of teas we are talking about, small packaging, the kadogo things, yeah, that everybody will want to take. It will create a value chain on its own. It will create employment. It will attract tax. Whatever was lost out of VAT will be covered in these other aspects. You see? So that's the kind of discussion we wanted to have with government. Because, as you say, yes, tea is expensive. And actually, you'll find imported teas are less expensive than our local teas. Why? Because they have very good tax rebates in their own countries. So they'll be able to manufacture a tea very cheaply, bring it here, pay the duty to bring it here, and still sell it cheaply than what we do. It's policy issues, both fiscal and also, legislative. Yeah.
There you have it. We have been speaking matters of tea production and also looking at why Kenya is producing one of the greatest quality in terms of quality teas in the world, with a lot of demand driven from even China as well as continental Europe. But yet we do not consume our tea. Issues of, high prices and such. And we've had from none other than the CEO of the Kenya Tea Growers Association, Apollo Kiarii, who says that we need to have a change in fiscal policy as well as legislative policy so that we can return tea growing to profitability. I'm Regina Manyara. You're still watching Biz Check. For now, we take a quick breather. We'll be back discussing matters of ICT, connecting private sector, government, as well as consumers. Do not go away.